What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and the iPhone X was a huge breakthrough for Apple back in 2017. It was the first ever iPhone to have a near edge-to-edge display with no home button and facial recognition. It was our first look at the future of the iPhone, and now, here in 2021, 4 years after the iPhone X was released, not too much has changed. So I went out and used the iPhone X for about a week here in 2021, and I wanted to give you guys my overall opinion on the device and whether or not you should consider buying one here in 2021. And also, if you have an iPhone X now, should you sell it while you can and upgrade? Let's discuss. So, the iPhone X, the futuristic iPhone that made everybody gasp when Apple revealed the hefty $1,000 price tag. Now, it doesn't seem like that was 4 years ago, but here we are in 2021, where most flagship phones these days are over $1,000, which is a price that many used to say that they would never pay for a phone. And while it's no longer a futuristic iPhone, it did pave the way for all iPhones to come after it. Even looking at like the iPhone 12, for example, I mean, the front side is very similar, and unless you looked at the edges or the cameras on the back, your average person would have a hard time telling a difference in these two phones. And that's because Apple has kept this very familiar design, which consists of this pretty much identical near edge-to-edge display. So you can see we still have the black borders on the edges. It's not completely edge to edge. We have the same size notch pretty much. We still have that notch there. So everything is still very familiar on the front side. And we also have the glass front and the glass back on all iPhones since the iPhone X. And then we also have a multi-camera setup on the back. So the iPhone X just really paved the way for the future in terms of design of the iPhone. And even though the iPhone X is not quite as durable as the iPhones to come after it, it still has an IP67 rating, which means that it's going to be water resistant and up to 1 meter of water for 30 minutes. But aside from the water and dust resistance, the actual frame of the body and the back glass hasn't changed at all since the iPhone X. The only thing that's changed since this phone is the front glass of, and that's only, on the iPhone 12. The front glass of the iPhone 12 now has a more durable, slab of glass on the front that Apple calls the ceramic shield. But other than that, every iPhone that's come after the iPhone X has been pretty much identical in terms of the overall build and the materials used. And even though the iPhone 12 has a more durable screen, I've really not had an issue with scratches on the iPhone X ever since I owned it. And I mean, I have used a screen protector and a case a lot, which I would recommend everybody do. But really, ever since I had this phone, it's been in pretty great condition. I really don't have any major scratches at all on this display. So that's something I've noticed with time. It seems like it's kind of hit or miss. The glass is still pretty much the same with all iPhones that come after the iPhone X, but it seems like some scratch easier than others. Like even the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 11 seem to scratch easier than something like the iPhone X and the iPhone XS for whatever reason. But overall, the iPhone X is going to be a very durable phone with an IP67 rating. Like I said, it's not the best, on the market right now, but at least it still does have an IP rating. Now, as for the actual display, this was the first ever iPhone to get an OLED display, and that was a huge deal when it was announced and definitely played a role in that price jump to $1,000. So on the front here, we have a 5.8-inch OLED display with a resolution of 2436 by 1125 at 458 pixels per inch. And along with that, we do get True Tone and also a max brightness of 625 nits. So this OLED display, of course, does get pretty bright, and that's definitely one of the advantages of having an OLED display. They tend to get brighter than LCD displays. So nice and bright, especially here in Florida. That is a big deal to have a bright display. Not as bright as something like the iPhone 12, but I've had really no issues with the brightness on this phone. So all of the features and the display itself are found on the following year's iPhone as well. The iPhone XS has the exact same display as the iPhone X, which is another, great testament to the iPhone X as a whole and the value you're getting with it. So watching videos, playing games, checking emails, browsing through your social media, all of that is going to be perfectly suitable here in 2021 because we have this OLED display. And while it's not quite as sharp or even as bright as the OLED display on the iPhone 12, you probably won't be able to tell a big difference unless you hold them right next to each other or unless you're downgrading from an iPhone 12 to an iPhone X. Then you might be able to tell a small difference, but it's really nothing major. I mean, they're both OLED displays, so you're going to get great results. The iPhone X also has a pressure sensitive screen, which means we have 3D touch. And this is a feature that Apple replaced in 2019 with the highly inferior haptic touch, which is essentially just a long press compared to a pressure sensitive press like you just see right here on the iPhone 10. And that's the good thing about this. I mean, it's always going to have a pressure sensitive screen. So it's always going to have 3D touch, and that just makes pulling up these quick menus like this on icons or picking and popping inside of your mail or social media is going to be much faster and smoother than you get on newer phones that use haptic touch and do not have a pressure sensitive screen like this guy does right here. Now, as for the speakers and the overall audio experience, we do have stereo speakers on the iPhone 10, so videos, music, and podcasts will all be nice and clear. Now, obviously, it will not get quite as loud as something like the iPhone 11 Pro or the iPhone 12, but the overall clarity and just audio quality is solid, especially for a 2017 phone. The stereo sound is just a must, and I'm glad that this phone does have that. That was definitely one thing I paid attention to when going from the 12 to the 10. And since 2017 was the year that Apple removed the home button in favor of the notch and facial recognition, we do need to discuss Face ID on the iPhone 10. So this was the first generation of Face ID, and Apple doesn't really say, generations of Face ID, but thanks to the chip inside, we have seen an improvement in the overall speed, the viewing angles as to, how you can unlock it from different angles and things like that. The accuracy, the speed has all gotten better over time, but that's mainly due to the chipset inside. But if we just compare the speed of these two, you can see right there, it's obviously much easier to unlock the iPhone 12. The iPhone 10 didn't even unlock there. Let's try it again. You can see, there we go. So the iPhone 10 is definitely a lot slower than something like the iPhone 12. It takes longer to process the face, and it depends on the angle as well. There you go. You can see it takes much longer on the iPhone 10 there, which could be a con if you're coming from like a newer phone than the iPhone 10. But if you didn't have a Face ID phone before, you're not going to be able to tell a difference. But you can see quite the difference in speed and overall viewing angles, but it's still solid here in 2021. It's really nothing. It's very nitpicky for me to say that, but that's just, comparing it to what you would get on the latest and greatest phone. But yeah, Apple's chips continuously improve the speed and the accuracy of Face ID, which is great. And the iPhone 12 is going to look slow in 5 years. So, but speaking of Apple's chips, the iPhone 10 has the A11 Bionic chip inside with 3 gigabytes of RAM, and the performance is actually still very solid here in 2021. So I've used the 10 for social media browsing, web browsing, texting, phone calls, even gaming. I played some games like PUBG and Call of Duty and things like that. I don't normally like playing that on the phone. I usually like playing that on the iPad, but I did want to test it out on here, and it actually performed pretty good. I mean, I definitely expected a 4-year-old chipset and device to perform like a 4-year-old device, but no, I mean, it performs like something that was released maybe a year or two ago. It really was that impressive to me. So the iPhone 10 was ahead of its time, not only in the design, but also in the performance with that A11 Bionic chip inside. So this thing was ahead of its time, and I'm just in awe at how well it performs here in 2021. Even compared to like the iPhone 12, the iPhone 10 holds its own in nearly every category except for very intense gaming. Like sometimes when I would get into intense gunfights in Call of Duty or in PUBG when there's a lot of explosions going on, I would see some stutter and some lag, where I didn't see that on the iPhone 12. And the only other thing that was very consistent was the RAM management. So the RAM management is not the best on the iPhone 10. Even though we have 3 gigabytes of RAM, it's not quite as good, obviously, as something like the iPhone 11 or the iPhone 12. So that's really the only two areas where I saw a noticeable difference going from even the iPhone 12 to the iPhone 10. But I do need to say that if you're coming from a phone older than the iPhone 10, you will have a great experience with RAM management, and apps, will stay open longer than your 6S, your 7, your 8, whatever you had. But compared to the 11 Pro and Pro Max specifically, and the iPhone 12, they definitely keep apps opened in the background for longer. And that's one of the main things, like I said, that I noticed when going from my iPhone 12 and 12 Pro to the iPhone 10 for a week. But once again, if you're coming from an older phone, the RAM management will be better on the iPhone 10. And it's actually still, pretty impressive for a 2017 device. The A11 Bionic chip is just still such a beast. Now, another thing that Apple's chips have enhanced over the years is the photo and the video quality. So on the iPhone 10, we have a dual 12 megapixel camera setup, one wide and one telephoto lens, and 12 megapixel lenses are what Apple is still using to this day on the latest and greatest iPhone 12. But the reason that the iPhone 12 has better photo and video quality is because of the chipset inside. So computational photography is one of Apple's greatest strengths now, and it's kind of amazing how far they've come with that, because it used to be like Pixel, it used to be Google with the Pixel line that had the best computational photography in the game. But now I think Apple has definitely, claimed that, and they are the kings now, in my opinion, of computational photography. Now, the iPhone 10 doesn't have near as good of photo or video quality as something like the iPhone 11 Pro or the iPhone 12, but the quality is still more than acceptable here in 2021. And your average person is not going to be able to tell a big difference in good lighting conditions. But I will say that good lighting conditions is the key word there, because in 2018, the year after the iPhone 10 was released, Apple introduced Smart HDR. And, that's when things really started to progress with computational photography, and, the video quality and the photo quality started improving a lot more after 2018 and Smart HDR came about. So, with Smart HDR, the dynamic range will be greatly improved, since the phone takes multiple images at different exposures at once and kind of combines them together to get the perfect exposure and the perfect dynamic range. And, that really shows in overexposed photos or like direct sunlight photos. So the iPhone XR, for example, or the iPhone XS and all the phones that came after it won't have such blown out skies in photos or videos, and just the overall colors are going to be more detailed and refined compared to the iPhone 10. So like if you took the iPhone 10 and took a picture of the sky, with the sun right there, it's going to look a lot more blown out than it does on something like the iPhone XS or any phone that came after it, because they're going to have Smart HDR compared to Auto HDR, which you get on the iPhone 10 and below. And then obviously when the iPhone 11 came along, we got Deep Fusion. And then when the iPhone 12 came along, we got HDR video, along with improvements to Smart HDR every year. So clearly the iPhone 12 is going to have the best camera quality by far right now. But again, your average everyday person is not going to be able to tell a huge difference more than half of the time. Probably like 8 out of 10 times, they're not going to be able to tell a big difference, especially if you nail the lighting. If you nail the lighting, if you get the lighting perfect, that's going to be really hard to tell, especially if you upload it to something like, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, where you have compression going on. It's going to be really hard to tell. You really will only be able to tell the big difference in low light and really well lit situations, like overlit, like overexposed situations. Now, one of the things I love about the iPhone 10 is that it has a telephoto lens, and that's something that only the Pro models have nowadays, and that helps a ton with portrait photos. So portrait shots are fine on the iPhone 10. I mean, this was only the second year that Apple made portrait mode, since portrait mode was a thing. So the edges can still be a little bit off sometimes, but it still makes for great photos, especially of objects. For whatever reason, I tend to do object portrait mode a lot. So I tend to take, portrait shots of objects a lot more than I do people. But you can see there, it's just fine. I mean, it's nothing too special. The edges, like I said, are not always going to be perfect, and you cannot, modify the blur like you could on later phones, but it still has that telephoto lens and portrait mode, which is nice. Now, as for the video recording, we can shoot in up to 4K 60 FPS, and thanks to that telephoto lens, we do have the 1x and the 2x little digital zoom there, which I love. I love having the 1x and 2x button right there. That's really nice. And then also, thanks to iOS 14, we can change the quality right here inside of the camera app, which was a feature exclusive to the iPhone 11 at the time, but now we can do that. We can change the frame rate there as well by just simply tapping on the number. So that's really nice to have there on the iPhone 10. Definitely makes it feel newer. So I don't know, it's just a small thing that I do like. So yeah, we have the 2x button right there for our optical zoom, and then we have digital zoom up to 6x. So you can see we can zoom all the way in to 6x right there on our digital zoom. Now, the only unfortunate part about video on the iPhone 10 is that it does not have stereo recording. So the sound from videos that you shoot are not going to sound as good as, like the iPhone XS and newer. So the year after the iPhone 10, Apple introduced stereo sound when you record videos. So not going to be a huge difference, but that is one thing I wanted to note there. And then of course, we do not have any of the fancy new features like the night modes. We don't have HDR recording. We don't have audio zoom or nighttime time lapse. None of the really new features, but once again, those are very niche. Those are very specific features that not everybody is going to need or really even use very often. Myself, I don't even use any of those too often. Now, as for the selfie camera, we do have a measly 7 megapixel camera, which will be fine for FaceTime calls and the occasional selfie. but honestly, the quality is not going to be anything special by today's standard, especially after seeing how incredible the iPhone 12's front-facing camera is. Now, we do have portrait mode on the selfie camera as well. We also get Animoji and Memoji support, which is great for those of you who use that. Now, we can only record video in up to 1080p 30 FPS, so nothing special on the video side of things, but then again, the quality is not really good, so I don't know how 4K would even look on the front-facing camera, but nothing special, like I said, but it will suffice for anybody who doesn't take a ton of selfies every day. Now, if you are somebody who takes a ton of selfies every day and you want to post these selfies or just have them for yourself and you take them consistently and you want really good quality, I'd dish out the extra cash to go with the iPhone 12, honestly, because it really is far and away better than any other iPhone when it comes to selfies, especially portrait selfies, in my opinion. All right, so now let's talk about the battery life on the iPhone 10. And in my usage, this phone does not last me an entire day, but for some people who don't use their phone as much as I do, it very well could last you an entire day, which is crazy. And iOS 14 definitely helped with battery life because I got worse battery life on iOS 13 by a pretty wide margin, probably by like an hour of on-screen time difference. So hopefully later versions of iOS, like iOS 15, which the iPhone 10 will get, hopefully it'll be even more improved by that time as Apple continues to optimize their software, which they tend to do a lot towards the older devices as well, which is nice. And another good thing about the iPhone 10 as well is that you can fast charge it using that 20-watt brick. So those are more popular nowadays than they were back in 2017. So that could be one thing as well to be on the lookout for. It does charge up really quick, which is a really big convenience factor. Now, when buying one of these guys, I would make sure to look specifically for one with 90% or more on the battery capacity. So if we go into my settings here and then go down to my battery health, and you can see my battery health there is at 93%. So I would look for an iPhone 10 when you go to buy one with at least 90%, maybe like 88%, but really nothing lower than 90. Me personally, I would not go for anything lower than 90. But yeah, battery life is fine on the iPhone 10. It's nothing special. It's not going to last you the entire day if you use your phone like me, but it is a good thing that it charges up fast so that you don't have to constantly be tethered to a plug, tethered to a cord all day. Now, speaking of later this year, the iPhone 10 will definitely be getting iOS 15 later on this year. And then I also think the iPhone 10 will get iOS 16, and it could even wind up getting iOS 17 3 years from now. Who knows? So if you buy this phone today here in 2021, you will have a phone that's going to be, getting software support for years to come. I would say at least 2 years to come, which is great. So with all that being said in this video, should you buy the iPhone 10 in 2021? And to determine that, we need to see the price that these iPhone 10s are going for on the used and refurbished marketplace. So first off, I do want to talk about Amazon Refurbished. They actually have a really good program here where you can buy renewed phones. And you can see the iPhone 10 here has a 64 gig iPhone 10 for $300, which is an excellent price, especially with Amazon's gracious return policy. I believe you have 90 days to return this phone if you don't like it. So I would strongly consider that, and I will link this exact listing down in the description below. So if you want to pick this up for $300, I think that is a great price, and you also have a great gracious return policy through Amazon. Now, as an alternative, you can also go to eBay or Facebook Marketplace for a potentially better deal. And as you can see here on eBay, the iPhone 10 in good to mint condition are going anywhere from about $230 to around $350. And to me, that is a terrific deal. I mean, especially if you care a lot about the display, because you will not be finding an iPhone with an OLED display for any cheaper of a price than that. Now, if you care more about the camera and the video quality, if you care about that more than anything else, then I would probably say to go with the iPhone XR or the iPhone 11 for about, $100 to $200 more, maybe even a little bit more than that, $250 more. But if you want a good, well-rounded phone for about as good of a value as you can ask for right now, I think the iPhone 10 makes for a great upgrade from an older phone. Or if you just want a secondary phone, I do not think you can go wrong with the iPhone 10 here in 2021. Now, if you have the iPhone 10, should you sell it now and upgrade? And I say no. I say that you should actually hold on to the iPhone 10. And honestly, This year, we may not be seeing as big of an iPhone upgrade as you think, so I would potentially hold on to the iPhone 10 for one more year until 2022 and maybe look at the new iPhones that come out then. Or if you're already fed up with your iPhone 10, maybe you don't get good battery life or something like that, of course you can replace the battery, but if you just want a whole new phone, I would at least wait until later this year because the iPhone 12s will get discounted once the new iPhone 12s or iPhone 13 comes out later this year. So just keep that in mind, and that's just my overall opinion on that. So if you have a more specific question, I can probably answer that for you if you leave a comment down below on this video. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That is my review on the iPhone 10 here in 2021. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up. Of course, let me know down below if you have an iPhone 10. Do you want to get an iPhone 10? Let me know your overall thoughts on this device because I think it's a great value here in 2021. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.